Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 24th regular board meeting for the Wenatchee School District. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. A little bit of housekeeping. Director Norton is joining us remotely, and Director Jackson will be joining us a little bit late, so he'll be walking in a little bit later. Esta junta se lleva a cabo en inglés, pero contamos con servicio de traducción. Si alguien gusta hacer un comentario público o recibir explicaciones en español, por favor, indique su necesidad. We will now work through the agenda. Board, are there any proposed changes or modifications to today's agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda were sent to the board and posted online last week. The board has had the opportunity to review the material and ask the superintendent any questions that they may have regarding the consent agenda. The consent agenda for this meeting includes the May 27th and June 3rd regular meeting minutes, vouchers and payroll, the personnel report, surplus report, contracts, field trips, April financial report, the WIAA resolution, June enrollment report, and the 24-25 highly capable district plan survey. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Martin. And a second by Mark. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none at this time. All in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please say aye.
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 Perfect. Motion carries. Kim, do we have citizen comments? Perfect. So we'll skip right into the meat and potatoes of our agenda with special presentations.
Excellent. So we'd love to welcome Hillary Martinez to the podium to walk us through the recommendations from our facilities committee. And our facilities committee has worked over the last 15 months to understand the dynamics of the Wenatchee School District and where we are with facilities and work through some long-range planning. We also have Phil Crocker here from Teeter Crocker. Thanks, Phil. And David Bodine from Turner and Townsend Erie. Thanks for being here to support and represent. And Hillary is no stranger to the Wenatchee School District. She is a parent. She is a former staff member with our Gear Up program, and she's representing a parent and community member and Wenatchee Valley College employee as well. Thanks for being here, Hillary.
Thank you. So do I have a PowerPoint?
Oh yeah, Liz will get that started. Yep. I know it's hard to get started. Where are the slides? Okay, we got this.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you for that introduction. And like Dr. Kelleher said, I am a parent of 4 children that have been in the Wenatchee School District. I'm currently employed at Wenatchee Valley College. And I did work for Gear Up, and I got to work pretty closely with Foothills Middle School and also with Westside High School. So I was really pleased to be invited to be a part of this committee. So the committee was put together by our superintendent in March 2024. The committee was comprised of community members like me, Wenatchee School District staff, and it was also supported and facilitated by experts. They're listed on the slide, but I know them by Phil and David, they're like first name basis. So, but thank you. But we really appreciated their support in helping us facilitate. The committee members were actually pretty diverse in many ways, but I would say especially in our opinions and ideas. So we met 9 times over 15 months. So it was a while that we've been working on this. And each meeting we were presented with different data and information. And this was around school facilities, educational programs, financial information, and our community responses. We actually broke up into small groups to engage with the information presented. Our feedback was then collected and used to help us move the process forward. So the goal of the committee quickly became to improve as many learning spaces across the district as possible. We actually settled on our final 2 recommendations that you see here to complete HVAC upgrades at all required locations across the district and to build a new Wenatchee High School on the existing site. We also decided the best way to fund this would be through a bond request. So HVAC was seen as a priority for us for a couple of reasons. The first, because children can't learn, teachers can't teach without basic needs being met. And if you have ever experienced losing your air conditioning in the summer, like I just did, or heat in the winter, you know firsthand that there's no way you are learning a new skill when you're focused on regulating your body temperature and staying comfortable. Another reason was not upgrading HVAC now is going to cost us in repairs and eventually fees, which I'll go over a little bit more as we look through our next slide. So this is kind of a little meaty. It's kind of a good chart to take a look at for a minute. This slide shows what the estimated costs based on the square footage to replace and upgrade the HVAC in each building. One thing you're going to notice there is that you're going to see some blank spaces, and those are where no HVAC is required, except for Wenatchee High School, of course. And that's going to be addressed in our second recommendation of reconstructing the school. In the last 4 years, Wenatchee School District is having to address HVAC maintenance annually to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars, actually in 2022, 2024, and this year in 2025. And that's just to keep us limping along. The Clean Energy Transformation Act is also going to cause fines on the district if a plan to address HVAC is not created, starting with the high school at $430,000. So it's something that has to be dealt with. So the second recommendation is to build a new high school on the existing site. The turning point for the committee was when we realized a new high school was not a want, but a need, was when we toured Wenatchee High School. I would recommend a tour for anyone who is unsure if this is actually a need. The committee also wrestled with the idea of keeping students on site during the build and decided this is what would be best for students and staff if at all possible. There are 2 conceptual models we will share in the next couple of slides, depending on if we can just update the gym and the pool area, also called the natatorium, new vocabulary word for me, or if we actually need to replace them. So this right here is the current footprint of Wenatchee, the high school as right now. I think I have I have a pointer. Look, that's Millardale. And then we have it's on my right, that South Miller Street and then Red Apple Road, where you can see where the fields are. So this is what it currently looks like. So this would, this first model here, this is if we replaced everything. And if you look at the red outline up there, that's the current footprint. And what was pretty exciting for us is as we were discussing things that need to be done, by keeping this on the site, as you can see, we're going to be getting a new track and some new fields and stuff as well, which need attention. Oops. There's our second one. Okay, there's our second one. This is if we can keep and modernize the current gym and pool area. And again, this model also, we still will have the new fields and courts as well in this model. So costs. The total cost estimate for the entirety of the recommendation is $372,875,900. This number was estimated by using something called the midpoint construction method. And that would be if we went for a bond in 2026, the midpoint in construction would be 2029. And any later actually would just increase the cost. This method also used a 7.5 inflation rate on the HVAC systems and a 6% inflation rate on the construction, on the high school construction. Another thing to note is that the HVAC midpoint technically could be earlier, as well as bringing the cost down there. So these figures are actually pretty conservative, so we can make sure we can complete all the projects. So, we also have access to a large SCAP funding from the state, up to $79 million. This will be given as reimbursement for the new high school build. And this actually covers 25% of that build. After taking this into account, the bond request drops to $295 million. So, here we go. This leaves us with a 15-year flat rate bond for $1.48 increase. Question as to why we didn't choose maybe a 20 or even a 25-year bond was that these options actually gave us a variable rate, which we really wanted to stick with the flat rate. And our thought also is 15 years is better than 20 or 25. So I just really wanted to thank the board for considering our proposal and taking a look at this recommendation as you move forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Hillary. And the next slide is for me to share with the board, and it just walks through what the next steps would look like based on today's presentation. So board considers consideration of the committee's recommendation, followed by potential action on committee recommendations. Then there would be a board decision to run a bond initiative. The board would develop a bond resolution, and then we would develop a bond committee as well. Obviously, those are all oversimplifications of lots of pieces and processes, but we want to make sure that the community and the board knows kind of what those next steps look like, and that we are not just going to go out for a bond proposal this November or next February. It's going to take some time and a lot of work because, as you noticed, the diagrams and the representations of what the high school look like are very rudimentary at this stage, and we need to dive in deep to what that looks like. But we feel very confident about the estimation of the numbers and the work that would be necessary. So just wanted to kind of conclude with those next steps. And that's a lot of information, a lot of summary for 15 months of longitudinal work. It's been great. After each meeting, the board has gotten a summary of what we actually did in those meetings. They've seen the slides and kind of been part of that process throughout. So there's been some learning in that realm. But I know that Hillary and I and David and Phil are all here to answer some questions that you might have, or help shape any thoughts that are forming in your mind as well.
I have a lot of questions.
Perfect.
So Corey, just a general estimate for this next steps. What do you anticipate the timeline?
Oh, yeah, great. Well, when I look at steps 1, 2, and 3, those can go as quickly as the board is comfortable with. And then when we get to the bond resolution, I think in between that stage, we're going to want to think about what it takes to launch a bond. And everything that I've been told and everything that I've learned is it's like a levy times 3. So maybe a year potentially is what we would need. So if we were to do steps 1, 2, and 3, potentially before October, and we wanted to run a bond in November of 2026, then we would take that year and get ready. Correct me if does that sound reasonable? Okay. Our 2 experts in the room.
Okay. And then uh, what's the average time frame for starting a construction project from start to finish?
Great question.
So on a project site in your high school, talking to design takes a year and a half, 18 months on a design, and about 2 year build. You're talking
You have a great loud voice, but
I'm trying to project.
for our Zoom listeners,
Yeah. No problem. So like I was saying, I can move up here. I don't want to, but I will. As needed. Yep, no problem. Oh, don't make a big mouth sound. So when we've consulted with the architect, we're talking design around year and a half, and then construction around 2 years plus another few months after that for the fields that would happen afterwards. So
So looking at the chart where the cost estimate and inflation and all that
mhm.
fun stuff, where, given on all these two timelines that we just heard, where would we land? Where do you think we would land? I
Yeah,
know it's
so
all
if-
hypothetical.
Hypothetically, you were to go out to your voters in November of 26. So you're talking 27 going out in 28 to start construction. So that's why we put that we've been working off that 2029 number as the cost to work off of, because that will be that midpoint of construction, which is where we tend to range to, because when contractors are bidding a job, you know, they look at where costs are going to be to order the materials, where labor is going to be, and so forth, that midpoint
Okay,
for high low. So that's kind of where we look at.
okay. So technically, we're looking at a new high school in
In 30.
2030?
2030, 31, somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And we can further break that down in a pretty easy graph chart for you guys to look
Mhm.
at.
Okay. I mean, I like the visuals of providing that, okay, you know, this is where the high school is, this is where it would go, if this or if that. I really like that. And I'm assuming it's a little scary to have the main entrance off of Red Apple Road.
Very conceptual.
Okay, okay, okay.
And that's a struggle when we show diagrams. This has not been vetted. This
Okay.
has not been, hey, this is like what we tasked the architect team with. We said, hey, can we even do this? Because when I looked at this site as a whole here, I was like, I think we can, but I don't know if we can. That's a 2-story structure. It's not a 1-story sprawling structure. It's a 2-story structure, specifically in the classroom wings. So you can see it says CR 2-story. So that's a 2-story structure back there in order to make it work. So that was, I told him, you have all the fun in the world, design. Can you make this work on the site? It may look nothing like this, right? Because we got to look at movement of students, because we have to keep students safe, keep academics running full time, minimize everything. What you can see is fields are gone during construction. There is no field use on this site during construction. That will be something we'll have to work through as part of the logistics and execution of the bond. But we can build on a site, and I hate to say it, but I build buildings closer than those are right there, without disrupting students. But it's going to require the team to look at it and look at all aspects of it as we further design it. But this is, don't take this as gospel
Okay.
in any way, please. It's
Okay.
not even vetted by anybody yet.
yeah. And I appreciate that too, because the committee spent a lot of time focusing on where do students go
Mhm.
if we're going to, take down the high school and then rebuild it, where you have a portable city somewhere, or we'd have to displace other students in other buildings. And the team really liked this idea and concept is we're building this while the other school is still working as best as it can, and students are navigating through those building, through the former building. We will have to move the current portables that are there, and so we'll have to work out those logistics. But the committee did really like this piece. Thanks, David.
And I understand, any of the design process, want to make sure that is very community driven, right? That is going to be a multi-layered process when the bond passes to engage the community about what the school looks like, how it sits, and all that functionality. So it's always that fine line of showing graphics and images, but recognizing we haven't come up with anything designed.
Okay.
So we'd be very careful about that, because it is a community centric project, and that their input is going to be wanted through the whole thing. And so we often run into some struggles here when we show these concepts, because think, oh, you've already figured it out. No, it'll fit. That's not the extent of what we
Okay,
know.
okay. I just want to say thank you to the committee. I mean, I've heard I've read it's a very diverse committee, well represented through parents, community members, business, different entities. You were really quick to go back to sit down. No, I don't have any questions. I'm like, oh, Hillary's she's done. No, but yeah, and I appreciate knowing Hillary. And knowing, okay, well, we're looking at 2030. Or her children will benefit from this. But the investment that's going into from our community members or committee members that don't have children in the district. So and I heard it was a unanimous decision from the committee members to move this forward. So I just want to say thank you to you, to all the members. It takes one brave soul to present to the board, and I guess it was you. But again, the emphasis of we're all we should all be invested in the education system within our community, whether it's impacting us directly. We have children or grandchildren or not. So thank you.
I do have a question if they're still there and if you can hear me.
You're good. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay. Can you just explain why the capital levy is not an option? I assume it wouldn't fund to the level needed, but if there is a contingency, if in fact a bond is not capable of passing, because I don't see any change to the approval rate thresholds, and that's been a big obstacle for most bonds in our state. So can somebody speak to that for me? Thank you.
I'll do my best. Corey, you can add on to other things there. Capital levy was not really, I would say be considered from the HVAC side of things, but for a project as large as the high school is, the capital levy is a really tough lift on a community because that tax rate would be pretty dang high because you're doing anywhere from a 5 to 6 year levy. And you also in a levy, you only collect each year by year. So the district would have to take out a loan to front fund, but that tax burden on your community would be significantly substantial versus drawing it out the 15 years, in this case with the bond.
Well said. I wouldn't add anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Julie.
And I want to thank the committee and our two consultants for all of this work. The board has been shown ideas for a bond ever since I've been on it 6 years ago and a lot before then. I think the two crucial things which you recognize is that it is a community dynamic, community momentum that would make a bond work. And as time passes, you realize, and I'm going to switch to the AAM energy group working with our interns, and they draw the school district as the hub of a community. And it really is. That's the future. That's our investment. Now, from my point of view as an individual board member, I've not been on the facilities committee. We have restrictions on how many people can participate. So I'm reading short reports. And Hillary, a great dynamic short presentation, punching at a high level though. So I feel that you have put the board in a position of now is the time to do something that is essential. The critical thing is to have the right pieces in place to do it well and the timing. Julie asked about capital levies. When we first began looking at the problems year to year, it seemed that maybe we could fix some mechanics with capital levies and not have to go out for a big bond. And I understand that your committee has looked at that and think that it doesn't work emotionally and impact-wise. So I think that it's incumbent on us to pick something that is going to work and make it work, implementation being really, really critical. If I go back in my own prejudices, I was really concerned to have educational expertise ready to help with the design. I call it educational architecture. Somebody mentioned about flow of students in buildings. We need to think about what's inside the walls of a building, not just building walls and wondering how teaching is going to work. So actually, I'm very pleased that Tita Crocker is part of our consultancy group, and I'm glad to see the consultants we work with have a lot of education experience. So that's good. The community really needs to go. So the timetable has been presented November of next year. That just meets Corey's time. And I'm just on the take, absorbing and saying, this is what we need to do. Let's look at it. and let's kick it around. And I guess the one point I wrote down, it's essential. The other one is, I think, Corey, I would like to have some workshop time for the board on this. If I go back to our previous time, we spent quite a long time chatting and nothing happened. And now I think you've come with a very big, bold proposal that looks like it makes sense. We need to catch up with you. Thanks.
Julie, any further questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you guys for being here. Like Martin said, we look forward to a workshop in the future. So, great.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, friends. Hillary, thank you for being the brave soul. We appreciate it. Representing everyone. Oh my gosh. Well, let's move to our second presentation. We have Executive Director of Learning and Teaching, Heidi Busk, in her final appearance as in her final school board meeting, joined by Director of Learning and Teaching, Amber Burks. Thank you both for being here and sharing with us our end of the year data. We're very excited.
All right, here we go. All right. So good evening. Amber and I are here tonight to share an overview of our students' end of year learning results in reading and math. In this report, you will see how our students performed on 3 key assessments: common formative assessments, or CFAs, which we like to call them, which provide the most immediate insight into classroom learning. You had the opportunity to see some CFA data during a workshop earlier this year for math, so you'll get to see how we ended the year. iReady Diagnostic in both reading and math, which are multiple choice assessments that measure growth in these 2 areas, and the Smarter Balanced Assessment, or SBA, which offers a broader look at student achievement in reading, writing, and math. The SBA data that you will see tonight, as always in the spring, is preliminary data until it's released by the state in the fall, but it gives us a good picture of where our students are. So I'm going to pass it over to Amber.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, let's begin the report tonight with grounding our conversations in our WSD promise, values, and priorities. Oh, I have it. There you go. We promise to build a foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion from which each student emerges future ready. Our values: excellence in learning, equity, and accountability. Our priorities: thriving environment, opportunities, partnerships. And with the student voice: diversity, I am seen. Equity, I will thrive. Inclusion, I belong. So this year, you joined us for 4 learning walks, and these school board learning walks were a highlight for our learning and teaching team. Learning walks are an important structure for our team to continue to monitor our progress towards high quality instruction. And during the school board learning walk visits, you saw the thriving environments our students experience in our schools. You were able to see evidence of our Big 6 outcomes in action. High quality instruction. Teachers were using our essential instructional strategies to engage students and to provide rigorous learning activities and assignments. Big 6 outcome 2, belong and connected. Students participated in social emotional learning lessons, and you saw and felt positive school culture. Big outcome 3, reading on grade level. Students were listening, speaking, reading, and writing about what they were learning. Number 4, ready for algebra. Students were making sense of problems and solving them. And number 5, real world relevant learning. Students were coding robots in robotics class, and avid students were participating in a Socratic seminar discussing the pros and cons of roommates at college. And you also saw a marine biology CTE classroom engaging in a lab. PLCs and learning improvement teams are another 2 of our foundational structures in our system for collaboratively analyzing student learning outcomes and planning high quality instruction to improve outcomes for all students and to achieve our Big Six outcomes. On the left, you will see the 4 essential PLC questions that guide the ongoing work of our professional learning communities and our learning improvement teams. These questions are the backbone of our continuous improvement process. Question number 1, what do we want students to learn? And that is our guaranteed and viable units, the WSD essential instructional strategies. Question 2, how do we know when they learned it? And we know that through our common formative assessments, our iReady assessment, and our Smarter Balance assessments. Number 3, what will we do if they didn't learn? And we do that, we respond with intervention and reteaches. And number 4, what will we do if they did learn? These are our extensions. And on the right, you'll find the WSD essential instructional strategies, which are high leverage practices that our teachers intentionally integrate into their daily instruction. These strategies are designed to ensure 100% student engagement and high rigor. While they benefit all learners, they are especially critical for meeting the needs of multilingual learners. Starting at the bottom of the triangle are the norms and procedures that teachers put into place to lay the groundwork for the following strategies: the visuals and academic vocabulary, academic discussion, and structured reading and writing. These strategies are not just best practice, they are essential practice. And Heidi will start us with our data.
Right, so we are going to start today with our literacy student learning results. This data set, I'm having a hard time speaking today. This data set shows 3 years of Smarter Balanced Assessment, or SBA, results for students in grades bands 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and grade 10 over the past 3 years. Each bar represents a percentage of students demonstrating foundational grade level knowledge or higher, meaning they scored at a level 2, 3, or 4. The green line on the graph indicates the 2023-24 state average for all students. While we don't yet have the current year's state average, this gives us helpful context to see how our students are performing in comparison to last year's state averages. Looking back over the years, that green bar for the whole state doesn't move a whole lot because it's such a big group that they're taking the information from. As you can see, across all grade bands, we are performing at or above the state average in terms of the percentage of students demonstrating foundational grade level skills or better. As we zoom in a little closer on our SBA ELA data, we can take a look at our students earning a level 3 or 4. This data set highlights the percentage of students demonstrating consistent grade level or higher knowledge and skills, those scoring at level 3 or 4 on the ELA SBA. You'll notice positive trends in grades 3 through 5 and 6 through 8, with steady increases over the past 3 years. After a slight dip last year in grade 10, we're encouraged to see improvement this year as well. The green line once again represents the 2023-24 state average for all students. While we are currently performing below the state average in grades 3 through 8, we're seeing encouraging progress. In grade 10, we're approaching the state average and showing upward momentum. This slide shows how students performed on 2 assessments: our classroom-based common formative assessments, or CFAs, and the iReady reading diagnostic. On the left, you'll see the percentage of students who demonstrated proficiency, scoring a level 3 or 4 on our reading CFAs. This was our first year implementing reading CFAs consistently across grades 2 through 5, specifically focused on priority comprehension standards. While this new approach to assessing comprehension, or with this new approach to assessing comprehension, 32% of our students met or exceeded the standard. We had a large majority of level 2s, but they're not showing on here. As teachers and students grow more familiar with the rigor and expectations of these assessments, we anticipate improved results in years ahead. In grades 6 through 8, teams are continuing to refine their ELA, unit plans, and CFAs. And this year, 47% of students in those grades met or exceeded standard. The chart on the right shows the percentage of students scoring on or above grade level on the iReady reading diagnostic, which is a multiple choice assessment used across grades K-8. This year's results show 60% of students in grades K-2 met or exceeded grade level expectations, 46% in grades 3 through 5, and 37% in grades 6 through 8. The combination of data from these three assessments, the SBA, the CFAs, and the iReady, along with our Learning Walk data, gives us a clear picture of where students are currently performing and helps guide our next steps in instruction and support. This slide shows our SBA ELA data disaggregated by multilingual learners, ML, and non-ML students for the 22-23 school year and the 23-24 school year. Nope, 21-22, 23-24. The Washington State average for ML and non-ML students, the next two bars, do I have the dates right on that? 22, yeah, I do. Okay. The next two bars show the performance of Wenatchee multilingual and non-multilingual students. So you can see the two gray bars at the beginning are Washington State, and then the next two bars in each data set are Wenatchee. As you can see, there is a performance gap between multilingual and non-multilingual students, both in Wenatchee and across the state. This is a trend we are aware of and actively working to address. To close this gap, we continue to implement and refine our WSD essential instructional strategies, which are designed to ensure that all students, especially our multilingual learners, have access to high-quality, rigorous instruction. Here you see the SBA ELA participation rates. We are particularly proud of the efforts Wenatchee High School made to ensure they increased participation this year after a dip last year. So big increase. Kudos to our high school for their strategies and ideas that they came up with and used to bring more students in to take that assessment. All right, we are going to move on to math. This data set shows 3 years of SBA math data for students in grades 3-5, 6-8, and grade 10. The bars represent the percentage of students demonstrating foundational grade level knowledge or higher, those who scored a level 2, 3, or 4. For context, the green line again indicates the 2023-24 state average for all students. As you can see, our students in grades 3-5 are performing very close to the state average. In grades 6-8, we're slightly below, and in grade 10, we see a larger gap of about 20 percentage points. It's important to note that our K-5 PLCs have been working hard to improve student outcomes in math over the past 3 years, and we're beginning to see the efforts pay off. These students are now moving into middle grades with a stronger foundation, which we believe will lead to continued growth over time. Again, we'll zoom in to see the percentage of students who earned a level 3 or 4. So this data set reflects the percentage of students demonstrating consistent grade level or higher knowledge and skills, which means scoring at a level 3 or 4 in math on the SBA. Preliminary results show an encouraging increase in the number of students meeting or exceeding grade level expectations in grades 3 through 5. Scores in grades 6 through 8 have remained steady, while grade 10 shows a modest improvement compared to last year. The green line represents the 23-24 Washington State average for all students. As you can see, we're close to the state average in grades 3 through 5, but currently below in grades 6 through 8 and notably below, further behind in grade 10 when we're looking at just our level 3 and 4 students. Here we are looking at our student performance on both the math common formative assessments and the iReady diagnostic. On the left, the chart shows that in both grade bands, 3 through 5 and 6 through 8, the percentage of students demonstrating proficiency or higher on the CFAs increased this year, which is very encouraging. On the right, the chart displays the percentage of students who scored on or near grade level on the iReady math assessment. This year, we saw gains in the lower grades with 49% of K2 students and 43% of 3-5 students meeting or exceeding grade level expectations. However, in grades 6 to 8, there was a slight decline with 26.7% of students at or above grade level. Once again, this slide shows our math data for multilingual and non-ML students demonstrating foundational grade level knowledge or higher. The gray bars again represent the state, and the next two bars, the yellow and green, represent Wenatchee School District. As you can see, again, the gap remains as it does with the state. We are actively refining our Wenatchee School District instructional strategies and support structures to close this gap and better serve all of our students. Participation rates again in math. We can see a really great increase in the percentage of students who participated in math in grade 10. Tonight, we also want to celebrate our multilingual learners who demonstrated proficiency in English in listening, speaking, reading, and writing on the rigorous WIDA language assessment. In our district, we have about 1,500 multilingual students who are learning the English language and are at different proficiency levels across the district. This year, 90 multilingual learners demonstrated English language proficiency on the WIDA language assessment. Notice the large numbers of students who exited in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. For students who have been in our system since kindergarten, 4th or 5th grade is where we would expect to see many students exit because they've been in our system about 5 years, and it takes about 5 years to start to be able to demonstrate proficiency. However, that WIDA assessment is such a rigorous assessment that this is pretty amazing that we were able to exit 90 students in 4th and all the way. So yay, exciting. Students are monitored for 3 years after exiting the program as required by Washington State. So we keep an eye on them. It is important to note that the exited students, last year's, this year's, the year before, become part of the non-ML data that you have been looking at tonight. And I'm going to pass it off to Amber.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, now that we have had an overview of the learning results, let's take a look at our plan for improving student outcomes. Okay, on your left here, you'll see our WSD systems structures. These are evidence-based systems and structures that lead to rigorous high-quality instruction and are designed to close equity gaps. Each of these strategies reflects best practice in teaching and learning. And these are the strategies that we are implementing as a district to improve our outcomes. So on the right is our WSD tight implementation progression. And this visual illustrates how we move from initial professional learning to full system-wide implementation, where these practices are consistently visible and expected in every classroom every day. As you know, this level of implementation takes time and up to 3 to 4 years. So let's, let me go back. Yeah, let me stay right here. So let's just take a moment to look at each phase of the implementation process. So in phase 1, you'll see here in the yellow, which it is learn and practice. In this phase, educators engage in job-embedded professional development, such as our October and February district PD sessions, district trainer follow-ups where they get coaching right in their classrooms, learning staff meetings, and learning improvement day trainings on Monday mornings. They receive ongoing modeling and support to learn and begin practicing the strategies. At this stage of implementation is often visible through bright spots, or typically a handful of early adopters. Historically, this is where professional development has tended to stop. However, this phase is intentionally designed for learning and practice with the understanding that full implementation of the strategy will be expected the following year. And then we move to phase 2, which we call the refine stage. In phase 2, principals expect to see the strategies consistently applied in classrooms and during PLC time because educators have received ample training, ongoing support, and have a clear understanding of the compelling why behind the system-wide implementation. The reason we begin to expect these strategies is simple. The goal is for it to become part of our instructional habits, embedded in daily practice across the system. Which brings us to phase 3, the habit phase. In this phase, the strategies have become embedded habits that ensure high quality instruction system-wide. Approximately 80% or more of educators are consistently using this strategy during this phase, and it has become a norm across schools and throughout the district. As always, we continue to provide support for educators who are new to the profession or new to the district, ensuring everyone is brought up along with the work. So why is this progression, this implementation progression, so important and critical to our work? Because when there is a consistent and recognizable system of high quality instruction across all classrooms, we create the conditions to ensure high levels of learning for all students and to eliminate the equity and achievement gaps. So in this next slide, we wanted to share an example. We recently asked our principals to reflect and indicate where their schools are in the implementation of each of our strategies or structures. This example highlights one of our elementary schools. On the left, you see this year's professional development focus. For example, reading comprehension and close reading, there in the far left column. Our data that you saw today, along with input from principals and teachers, continues to guide our next steps to close these gaps, to close our gaps and ensure high quality instruction. The focus on reading comprehension at elementary and close reading is a direct response to the learning results and identified needs. This strategy will support improved literacy outcomes for students. And here is a secondary example from one of our schools at secondary level. Again, on the left, you see this year's professional development focus on close reading. You also see the emphasis on math PD, 3 reads language routine, in the ongoing support and feedback column, as math is a prioritized growth area. In phase 3, you'll notice that PLC processes have been worked on now for the past 4+ years. So the PLC processes are in the habit phase. And now we want to pause for comments and questions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the information and all the work that has gone into this. What an observation that I'm making that I've alluded to before, saying, okay, well, where are our students comparing when we compare their CFAs to iReady to SBA, and based on this, what I'm seeing here, the data seems somewhat consistent. What I was hoping to see was that, okay, maybe standardized tests are not the thing for every student. So the CFAs will help kind of guide the work a little bit more. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be that the SBA iReady and the CFAs seem to be consistently below average, which is really disheartening to see, because it just signifies that we have a lot of work to do. Again, I will continue to advocate for this. Our multi-language learners, our ML learners, that gap is not narrowing. I get that the strategies that we're doing are strategies for every single student, but I will continue to repeat myself that they need more than the standard strategies that every other student is getting. And I hope that this is the evidence that our district needs to see to start further interventions to narrow that gap. I appreciate you provided the averages for the state, and that we're close to it. But I think we need to be achieving for higher than the state average. I want, it's good to have, our stretch goals, our grade level goals, our stretch goals, whatnot. But I think we don't want to settle and say, well, we're right where the state average is, because realistically, the state average is not very good. So it just, a lot of work goes into this. I know we've been talking about PLCs, PBIS for years and years and years, and this tight implementation progression, it takes 3 to 4 years. Some schools have been there. Are we seeing the results of those strategies and implementation? I think if maybe it's there, we're just not seeing it because the data just is not disaggregated. But thank you for the presentation. I know our teachers work really hard, and I know our hands are tied. Educators' hands are tied with all the requirements at the state and the federal level require. But we got a lot of work to do.
We do. Maria, thank you so much. You're right. We don't want to be at that average. We want to be higher. We want all of our students to succeed and thrive. One of the things that was more noticeable when we broke down our CFA data by grade levels, by school, we were able to see those, as Amber talked about, the bright spots, the places where we're starting to see those results take off, particularly in those primary grades. Grade 3, if we broke that data down more and you looked at grade 3 in math, they did an excellent job. I mean, they had huge growth in our CFAs. So with pulling all data, we don't get to see those little spots where we're starting to really see that, in particular different grade levels. But we know as we start from kindergarten and we move up, it takes time for the students who are up here didn't get the benefit of all the work and the strategies and the learning that we're doing now in K1, 2, that's in 3, that's starting to build up to those upper grades. So thank you for that. Yeah.
I appreciate, again, I know we've seen the great stuff that works, that's in the classroom, the great stuff that's happening in the classroom. Another point to highlight is the huge drop from 3.5 to 6.8, where, as a parent of a middle schooler, to me, it seems like that's where they're getting their foundation to go into the next level, which is the high school. And it's alarming to see the huge cliff there.
Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you.
I was going to say something about that too. Is there I know you talked about, putting the better tool or giving our elementary school kids a better foundation, and, that is going to move up as they progress.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of insights into why we're seeing such a big drop into that high school level right now? I mean, is it changing of the tools that you've been using as a district? Is it some kind of participation at the high school level? Is there a reason we can see just that steady decline down to 10?
I'm not sure, but we are working. So yeah, we know we have more work to do across our system. We really emphasized and focused on K5 for that math focus early on because we knew our data there was also not where it should have been. And so we haven't put as much emphasis in that focus on math in particular at the middle and high school levels. Our teachers specialize and they're doing a fabulous job with their students, but it's not always showing in our data. So yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you knew, you'd do something about it, but it's just always sometimes
Yeah.
we can't do anything about 10th grade all at once. And these are the things, it sounds like by building the foundation and making kind of that
Mhm.
stronger base, we're doing
Yeah.
the work to make sure that
Yeah.
we're trying to move those better grades up the chain.
Do you want to say something?
Yeah. Yeah, and in addition to what Heidi just said, we do have a focused plan to really put a lot of focused attention the past 3 years on K-5 and math fact fluency and the math 3 reads language routine. And our energies have gone there, and that we're going to keep that going. And then this upcoming year in 6-8, we have a focused professional learning plan to start carrying those same strategies up to middle school in response to our data that we
Right.
saw today.
Kind of keeping the momentum going, right?
Correct.
Now that these kindergartners through 5th graders have that foundation, you don't want them to drop off in 6th because they aren't being helped along in that same way. Great, thanks.
Yeah, and to be fair, when our students go into middle school without those foundational skills that they have to have, it's really hard to teach addition facts when we're trying to teach algebra concepts at the same time. So yeah, it's a couple things, the focus on it at middle level, and then the students coming in with a solid foundation.
Do we hold anyone back? I mean, I understand that sometimes we're looking at kids that are 3, 4, 5, 6 grade levels behind where they are. Like if I have talked to someone in high school who is trying to teach a class to someone who can't read, like, do we ever, is that part of the process of like, this person needs to do 3rd grade again or not?
There are some cases. Sometimes the research shows that that's not the most effective. They often have strong gains at the beginning of that 2nd year. And then there are a lot of factors that play into that, and they don't always continue those strong gains throughout that year. Sometimes there are other contributing factors that make it not successful. But in some cases that does happen. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I think you've said it, and we all would like to see more positive incremental improvements from year to year or from cohort to cohort.
Mhm.
And it's hard. It takes patient determination. You have hosted us to see your work in process at the elementary, middle, and high school level. And that has been a great education for the board, and I much appreciate it. And I appreciate all the work and dedication of the teachers and of doing things systematically. Yes, I really kind of have a comment, no comment. We must look at these data as indicators and clues for what we can do better. They're not a test. They're not an Olympic Games deal. I think the comment that our goal should not be to just get to the state. Our goal should be to do much better than the state. So I think my only comment I made is we've just got to keep on being determined about it and being intelligent about it. I'm glad to see more, a little more history, a little more emphasis on disaggregated statistics. We didn't look at the schools, but you commented if you looked at schools, you see some bright spots, and maybe bright spots are ones that they can learn from each other.
Mhm.
So those are what one has to work on. I occasionally look to see if there's an improvement if the K through 3 got a good grounding, whether 3, 4 years, 5 years later, when they're in upper, we'll see a kick. We haven't seen that yet. And sometimes when you see a drop, like in 10th grade, you answered, I don't know. We don't really know morale of students, and everybody else is important. So I think it's important for the board to lead with a positive attitude and encourage, and try to build up that momentum. And I'm glad to see that more students are taking the SBAs.
Mhm.
That's positive. And then another thing in this is every time statistics need to be calibrated to be uniform. I'm just kind of curious, if we take the multilingual learners who test out in the wider, and then they're not part of the ML group. And if they're about 6% of the students every year, presumably that takes some of the more advanced readers out of the average multilingual
Absolutely.
statistic. Is that correct?
Yeah, the students who are.
I'm not
in
looking for
there-
excuses and I don't want to give you
No,
one.
but you're right. Yeah, they are pulled out. The students who are
Yeah.
proficient are pulled out. And
Yeah.
then we still have students who are learning the language.
So when we're looking for
Mhm.
small changes, we've got to be very cognizant that we don't fool ourselves, either positively or negatively.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a fun last board meeting for you.
I know. I kept it a lot shorter this year though, right?
Thank you for all the work. That's, I think it's really good information to see, and I'm encouraged, as Martin is, to try to find the bright spots in us to figure out how we make small steps to keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I think the math data in third grade and the significant gains on the CFAs, gains in SBA, gains on iReady, is starting to say here, these kids have come with this foundation. So I just, as I walk away, I think it's going to get better every year. So thank you.
Well, you have to check in, okay?
I will. I don't know if I'll come to the board meetings, but I'll check in.
Just wanted to check to see if Julie had any questions or comments.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And I just, I want to thank the two of you. I want to thank all the work that you have done. I really, really appreciate you sharing the Wenatchee School District TITES implementation progression with us. That is, I won't say it's new in concept, but it's new in the flow of how that worked. And it really resonated well with our leaders this year as we were closing out the year, going over our own data reviews. And we're excited to use that implementation progression as we end our school improvement planning process as well. So thank you for sharing that with the board. I think it's really great.
Thank you. And it really helps us target our support for each building individually as they move on. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Okay, next we have Sean Fitzgerald, Executive Director of Business and Finance, presenting the 25-26 budget. He'll highlight the ASB and then he'll work through the general fund as well. And you'll have to determine for yourself tonight if this is the main event or not.
Well, we still have a few in the audience, so, no clear outs tonight. Yeah. All right, very good. All right, well, thank you all. Oh. Can hear. Thank you all. President Jackson, members of the board, Dr. Kalahar, great to be here tonight to present the preliminary budget for the general fund and ASB. This is the second of 3 presentations. In our first board meeting in June, went over debt service, capital projects, and transportation vehicle. And then tonight, again, general fund and ASB, these are preliminary. And then in August, we'll be presenting the final budget for review and adoption by the board. So again, as background, we're organized on a fund basis accounting, and we use 5 funds: general, ASB, debt service, capital projects, and transportation vehicle. General fund makes up about 90% of the budget, and the remaining 4 funds take up the remaining 10% of the budget. We'll start off with ASB. So the ASB fund is designated for activities or events which are cultural, athletic, social, or recreational, and are optional, non-credit, or extracurricular events or activities. The primary funding sources are donations or collections of fees and fines. Funds are legally restricted, so the funds that are presented here tonight are only available for ASB activities or events. they cannot be used or transferred to other funds. So I'll begin with our year-end projections for the 24-25 school year. We have two sets of data here with budget capacity and without. Budget capacity was in our general student body, and our club's budget about $250,000, so about $125,000 split between those two accounts. So you can see overall budget capacity does not have effect on the ending fund balance. So the end results are the same, but when you look at the differences between with and without budget capacity, the variances are smaller in size. So overall, doing better than, when we look at our budget, although we didn't meet the budgeted levels of revenues and expenditures in both columns here, or both tables, I should say. Our overall growth is revenues exceeded expenditures. So we're seeing a slight growth in our ASB fund balance of about $164,000. And then in just kind of comparison versus budget versus projected, we're seeing an overall increase in $40,000 in ending fund balance between actual and budgeted amounts.
Sean, do you have any insight into why we're spending so much less? I'm assuming like if we're doing fewer things, we're not going to make as much money. So it's probably those two numbers being smaller makes sense. But like, is that just, do you know why?
So I think there's two things that play here. One is just capacity. And so although then when we do remove that on the right-hand side, you're still seeing the variances again. So the second part is, I think year after year, the ASBs have kind of a certain formula or methodology that they just follow. And it's like, this is the method that works. This is the process that works. And it's like, hey, we're content with not going over budget. We're operating within our parameters. So I think those are kind of the two driving forces. I don't think it's going to be, hey, we're not meeting our revenue fundraiser goals. Hey, we're not meeting certain activities. I think they just kind of have a plan in place that they follow on a year-to-year basis. Yeah.
I interrupt with a question on that one.
Go
Because
ahead.
we saw all the activity levels drop during COVID and then
Correct.
expected them to come back to the way they were before, and they haven't. The question I've asked is, if you ask students what their level of enthusiasm is, whether spending less, having less money and less expenses is a result of being less engaged, or are they, you commented that they get used to doing things in the same way. Are you getting any feedback of a passive, not very energetic attitude to ASB or not?
I don't think I'm seeing any passive activity, but it's kind of hard. Again, this is.
You're not necessarily the person, but I would think that would be a good question for us to ask of everybody. Yeah. Ask Eric.
Yeah, stepping back, I'm not seeing, I wouldn't say a passive approach or less enthusiasm. I think it's really dependent upon what each of the schools are doing and the engagement at the individual school levels, if that answers your question. Okay. So preliminary budget and forecast. So again, 25-26 preliminary budget, and also mirroring the 4-year forecast. Again, here we're seeing revenues and expenditures. In this case, just based on the information we're receiving from the schools, revenues are exceeding expenditures, and we're seeing a decrease in fund balance. Do I think that budget's going to reflect our actual reality? I do not think so. I think just the past few years, what we're seeing here is just a conservative budget. And moving forward, I think if history is anything to say, our revenues have been exceeding expenditures. Our fund balance has been growing since our return from the pandemic and returning to pre-pandemic levels. So ultimately, although I think this is a conservative budget, I do expect that fund balances will either continue to grow or be stable, grow moderately or be stable. Any further questions on ASB? Julie, do you have any questions on ASB before moving on to general fund?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
So moving on, we'll go into enrollment, a familiar table that's the board has seen. We have our birth rate trends for both the district and the county level. Getting this data from the Washington State Department of Health and MGD Consulting. So overall, we look at birth rates to kind of track our incoming kindergarten classes. This is kind of our basis point. There's a correlation between birth rates and incoming kindergarten classes. So generally, if we see an increase in birth rates, kindergarten classes are going to be larger and vice versa. If we're going back and tracking our data back to 2014 and 2015, we can see our birth rates for the school district peaked in 2014 at 634. They peaked for the Chelan County overall at 954 in 2015. Also at the same time, our enrollment peaked in 2015-16. Since then, we've seen an overall kind of decline of birth rates, a couple of jump ups, but ultimately an overall decline since 2015 and 2014. What we're looking for projecting our birth rates for our incoming kindergarten class for 25-26 is highlighted in red on the 2020 birth year. So we're seeing between 2019 and 2020 a significant drop in birth rates, both at the county level and in the district level as well. So just at the district level alone, we have a decline of 71 births. And then moving forward up to 2020, from 2020 to 2023, it's more of a decline, about 24 births over the next few years. So not a significant drop, but still a decline. So what this means for our incoming 25-26 class is an expectation of smaller kindergarten classes than what we've seen before. Our enrollment, so this is our current enrollment, current and historical enrollment going back to 2015-16. This is our annual average FTE, so it's including the FTE enrollment for the entire school year and excludes both Running Start and Open Doors because they act as a pass-through. So beginning 2015-16, our enrollment peaked at 7655. And then again, just some of the highlighted points, 2021 was the COVID pandemic lockdowns, followed by 21-22. We saw a slight increase to 6985 when the schools reopened. However, at the same time, we were also seeing both charter school, Pinnacles Prep opening, and then private schools, either additional openings or expansions beginning at the same time. For 24-25, we are looking at finishing the school year at 6550. That also includes summer school enrollment. So the difference between 23-24 and our current school years, we're looking at over 200 FTE drop from just the prior year. Looking at both our projected amounts and then our 4-year forecast, we continue to project an overall enrollment decline for next year. Between this year and next year, right now we're looking at a decline of 124 FTE. So not as much as this year, but still triple-digit enrollment decline. And again, the largest factor driving this enrollment decline, just based on the data, is again, our graduating classes are larger than our incoming classes, which again are driven by our birth rates. So you can just see, just looking at the data for 25-26, we're looking at possibly a class of 401 FTE for kindergarten. And then we compare it to our 12th graders at 501. So again, just a difference of 100 FTE leaving the system and students coming into the system. With declining birth rates projected for the next few years, our expectation is that kindergarten classes will continue to decline. And again, widening that gap we can see between kindergartners and 12th graders over the next few years. And then we're kind of paying attention to any of our classes, again, that are above 500 FTE. Our third graders for 24-25 are above 500. They will be moving into fourth grade next year, and they are our largest cohort in our elementary classes. So analysis for our enrollment is overall projection is that enrollment will continue to decline. but Valley Academy will continue to be our X factor. So just the steps that we're taking with moving Valley Academy, increasing registration. So the boon from that has not, we're trying to build a conservative budget here. We're trying to build a floor and build from that. So anything that we see an increase from Valley Academy would be helpful in mitigating any of these enrollment numbers we're looking at now. So if we're looking at a overall decline of 124 next year, our hope is that with Valley Academy registrations and renewed interest in there, that may be able to cut into the enrollment decline we're seeing. However, what the overall impact is going to be, we don't know yet. But kind of like last year at this time, we were kind of dealing with the opposite scenario. We had a new private school opening. We had other private schools expanding additional grade levels into middle school. And so we were trying to, again, build a conservative base as well. So here we don't want to paint a too rosy picture. We're hoping that Valley Academy can cut into that enrollment decline. But again, once the fall rolls around, we will be able to see the impact of what the new programming and expansion will bring for enrollment. Transition to kindergarten per state legislature. Enrollment is capped at prior year enrollment. So you can see I was doing 60 for this year, but I'm projecting 59 for the next 4 years. So this is our gift from the state. So enrollment is capped at prior year enrollment, but then we finished at 59.85. And even though we're going to have 60 students in TK, they just decided to round down our funding to 59. So they will fund us, we will have 60 students in TK, but the state in their generosity will fund us for 59. Elementary, again, as discussed, graduating classes are larger than our projected kindergarten classes. So again, we're paying close attention to this drop in birth rates from 2019 to 2020 of 71 kids and the impact it's going to have on kindergarten for next year and future years. Middle school, again, charter and private school offerings impact decreasing enrollment. This has been a factor in our enrollment analysis since 21-22, since Pinnacle's prepped open. Although a highlight we do have is the high schools is after middle school, we're seeing either students from charter schools, students from private schools entering or returning to the district at the 9th grade level. Again, this suggests that what we're offering at the high school level, whether it's activities, courses, is appealing to students in the area and causing them to enter or return to the district at 9th grade. Running Start, that was a large factor in enrollment decrease for 24-25, so I should say the current year. So just comparing registrations, I mean, at this time last year, we were looking at over 350 students registered from Running Start. This year for the 25-26 school year, it's at 290. So less students are opting for the Running Start option. And then again, as mentioned before, we're going to be paying close attention to Valley Academy. Will registrations match actual enrollment and the positive impact that could have on mitigating enrollment decline, overall enrollment decline. Before I move on, any questions on enrollment?
Sean, there's a big dip between current 10th to 10th graders moving on to 11th grade. Why do you think that is?
That's Running Start.
Although we're retaining. Okay, that makes sense. But we're retaining some.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, general fund. So we're going to start off with our 24-25 year-end projections. So last summer when we compiled the 24-25 budget, we were looking at a possible $4.6 million deficit just in our budgeted side. Based on our year-end projections, we're looking at probably tracking using about $1.3 million in fund balance instead. So how do we go from 4.6 to 1.3? What happened between summer of 24 and now the summer of 25? So there are about 5 significant factors main factors that are driving the favorable variance. First and foremost is local effort assistance. So we are funded, our local effort assistance, or LEA, that is a state funding that is based on changes in assessed value growth and enrollment. And this changes from year to year. And so when assessed value increases and your enrollment declines, the state provides less money. And that has been where we've been at for the last few years. So when it comes to enrollment decline, that is a given, that is an expectation. However, assessed value also changes year to year, and that is determined by our county assessor. So this year, our 5-year average in the school district area, our assessed value has grown at 10% over a 5-year average. This year, for the 2024 calendar year, our assessed value essentially remained flat. There was no change. So that resulted, because our expectation was assessed value was going to continue to grow, because it remained flat, we received extra funding from the state in the form of $1.1 million. The last time this happened was in 2018, when the assessed value change essentially remained flat. Budgeted positions internally fill. So this is occurring when, last year there were significant changes to the school districts, a lot of budget reductions, a lot of moving of staff. What occurred here was we had a lot of open positions, that were, existed at the time we created the budget. And then during the summer and the fall, those positions were filled. And those positions were filled by people that were currently employed with the district. So we were already budgeting those staff that were currently employed, and we had these open positions. And so that resulted in a savings of about $1.1 million because we didn't hire externally, we hired internally for these positions. Next up are our other financing sources and our other financing uses. So we budgeted $500,000. This was transferred to the Capital Projects Fund, and those were used for emergency or preventative maintenance measures that we went over in the last board meeting. And so we had about $500,000 transferred. However, we got about $1 million back from the Capital Projects Fund. And And the $1 million comes back from our softball field funding. So we transferred about $5.5 million from the general fund to the Capital Projects Fund to help the softball field. And one of the things we were going to do is return any money back to the general fund that we weren't going to use on the softball field. So once, we're at 99.9% completion on the softball field. Our expectation is, it's at substantial completion and that no additional funding is needed. So we moved about $1 million back to the general fund. So that was not budgeted for, but that's how we ended up getting it. So when we take our $1 million and our $500,000, we're getting an extra $500,000 back in our fund balance. And then last is just beginning fund balance. When we're creating the budget, we have to put in an estimate for our beginning fund balance for next year. And we try to, hopefully we can be accurate. And we were within about $150,000 this year. So that kind of rounds out the remaining difference. So that's how we go from 4.6 to 1.3. So that's very good news. On the other hand, even though we have a favorable variance, our fund balance still declined by about 1.3. And then we're going to still continue to look at, reviewing these projections and refine by adoption date. I mean, one of the things that's going to occur over the summer is OSPI has indicated we may receive additional food services revenue sometime during the summer, but we may not receive that until the end of July. So it may provide a boon in additional revenue, just with the short time frame. I don't know if we're spending it or not. I've had discussion with our Director of Nutrition Services, but we don't know the timing or the amount. So things can change, but this is what the data we have that we can work with at this time. Any questions on year-end projections? All right, moving on. Now we move on to our 25-26 budget and our forecast. I presented two scenarios here, one with the 5% minimum fund balance, and on the next slide you can see again with 6%. Looking at our 25-26 budget, we are looking at a $2.1 million deficit. That is the smallest budgeted deficit since our 2020-21 school year and substantially smaller than the last 2 years. Highlights other financing sources and other financing uses. So as discussed in the prior board meeting, we are transferring 500 of that 640, $500,000 will be transferred to the capital projects fund for preventative and emergency maintenance measures. And then an additional $140,000 roughly will be transferred to the transportation vehicle fund to make payment, assist in making payment on our 3 school buses arriving the first week of September. After the district is reimbursed by the state, we'll receive our depreciation reimbursement in August of next year for our buses. And so once we receive that reimbursement, we will transfer $140,000 back from transportation vehicle to the general fund. When we move to the next couple of years, 26, 27 and beyond, you can see a more favorable fund balance. We're showing a positive fund balance change of $800,000. Here we're seeing the impact of the EP&O levy will take full effect in 26, 27. So our current levy, which will expire in December of 25, and then we'll receive our partially part of our new levy beginning in January of 26, is going to occur during the 25-26 school year. But during 26-27, it will be entirely the new levy. So that's why we're seeing an increase in the revenues and outpacing our expenditures. And that would, project a positive budgeted fund balance. And then over the next 2 years, 27-28 and 28-29, again, change in fund balance starts to decrease again as well. And what we're seeing here is just the impact of enrollment decline and inflation catching up to our new levy amounts. So what's happening is, once we have our revenue, once we pass our EP&O levy, we are locked into those amounts. That's what we collect. So that stays static. It's not adjusted for inflation. And then over time, expenditures, those costs are going to catch up just because of inflationary costs and receiving less revenue based because of enrollment decline. Now here's the same forecast, budget and forecast using a possible 6% minimum fund balance that the board chooses to increase. Again, the difference between this slide and the previous slide, just drawing your attention to the bottom half of the tables, minimum fund balance and the unassigned amounts. You're kind of seeing the changes there. So an increase in minimum fund balance for just 25-26 generally transfers about 1.3. We'll go from 2.3 to roughly 1.3. Getting carried away. We have 2.3 in an unassigned, 6.7 minimum fund balance. As it goes to 6%, 1.3 is transferred from unassigned into the minimum fund balance. So again, you can see the impact, generally about 1.3 to 1.4 million moves between unassigned and minimum fund balance, depending on each percentage increase to the minimum fund balance. Assumptions and methodologies. So a lot of these things, a lot of assumptions and methodology does go into budget preparation. And these are things we monitor throughout the school year to see where we start with our budget and where we finish at the end of the school year. So again, as discussed, a continued enrollment decline projected, but Valley Academy enrollment may help mitigate that. Another significant factor is federal funding uncertainty. Impact on district programs for 25-26 seems minimal, but we have to pay attention to 26-27 and beyond, and what the impact is going to be beyond. We're going to be paying close attention over the summer to the federal budget and getting updates from OSPI and ESD on how that will look and how that will affect any of our federal funding and the impacts on any of our programs. Local effort assistance. So again, paying attention to the change in annual assessed value and enrollment decline. Probably get preliminary numbers in October. And that will kind of help us modify and get a better idea what LEA funds we're going to get for next year. No significant state legislative funding efforts. So during 24-25 school year, we're all aware state's dealing with its budget shortfall. And from all intents and purposes, it does indicate that the measures taken were helping to, if not eliminate it, help mitigate the shortfall. But we'll know soon enough during the next legislative session. That being said, one of the things I want to build in when we're compiling the budget is assuming that really we're not going to get any additional funding, regardless of a shortfall, regardless of a surplus from the state. We just operate under the assumption that the state's not going to come in and provide increased funding for any of our programs. You know, we want to build conservatively. We don't want to build too rosy a picture. Budget reductions are also factored in. Again, the key reduction factor is just aligning staffing to enrollment and just doing that on an annual basis each year. And again, that's something we'll take a look at in the fall when we start getting actual numbers and refining our projections, but that is a factor in building the budget. Inflationary factors, 2.5% IPD, that is what the state has set. So that is what we're using. Although there's been a lot of, between tariffs and all the other things happening in the world, we know these things are going to fluctuate on a year-to-year basis, but that is the number that the state has set, and so that's what we will use. We also budget for 100% staffing. Again, we're looking to be conservative. We want to have a floor. We want to see what does our expenditures look like when all positions are filled. And then another factor is, again, we get funded on K-3 class size compliance. So again, we'll be paying attention to that as well. The state funds up, you know, their ultimate goal is they'll fund you up to an aggregate amount of 17 students per class. You know, so in reality, a lot of schools don't have 17 kids per class. They're taking your entire K-3 student enrollment and dividing it by your K-3 staff to come up with that number. They're not looking at an individual class by class size. And then finally, capacity, we build in about $6 million, both for revenues and expenditures. And again, that's just there for carryover and then any unexpected revenues and expenditures that arise during the year. However, it has no effect on fund balance, budgeted fund balance.
All right, Sean, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So we talked about aligning staffing to enrollment and talking about enrollment going down. Does that mean their projected expenditures are expected to go down, or is the previous slide where you're looking at projected expenditures, does that already include the okay, we're going to be down one middle school teacher because of enrollment at that grade level?
Correct.
So that is already taken into consideration.
Correct.
That those position changes.
Yeah, it may not be exact position.
Sure, for sure.
But we are factoring in some sort of reduction amount.
Got it. So that's mostly just inflation or like IPD that's
correct,
raising that number go up.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Before moving on to more in depth on fund balance, any questions on the budget or forecast?
I have one. You still have in the preliminary 500,000 a year to go into the capital fund.
Correct.
And do we need to review whether we think that's adequate or not? I know it's a contingency. I think that if it stays at 500, then I think you've got to have a contingency reserve. I don't know what your thinking has been on that.
Yeah, no, I think, Martin, that's a great point. I mean, right now, I know for 25, 26, we're operating with, we have built-in contingency, but if we follow through with certain projects, we may be using up this and possible reserves. So this is something we're going to have to be looking at on an annual basis. Yeah. Thank you. Again, just fund balance background. Fund balance is our district's savings accounts. Not all fund balance reserves are available to use at any time. So we have, just in the general fund, we have assigned, committed, and restricted. So there's flexibility in assigned and committed, because assigned is directed by the superintendent, committed is funds committed directed by the board and board action. And then you have restricted funds, which are determined by contracts or legal requirements. And so most or if not all of our restricted funds are because of federal funds. They're specifically used for those specific purposes within federal funding requirements and cannot be used for any other purposes. I would also add, although this just discusses general fund, as I mentioned earlier with the ASB, those funds are legally restricted. So again, other funds, I mean, we're moving funds between general to capital, general to transportation. There are certain circumstances where we can move funds, move money between the different funds, but they're only in limited circumstances. And then last but not least are our unassigned funds. So we have our unassigned and then also the minimum fund balance as well. So here's our projected beginning and ending preliminary beginning and ending fund balance just using the 5% minimum fund balance. So again, we can see here highlighted the changes between the effect of unassigned and unassigned to minimum fund balance, what that would look like. Here, if we're declining from 13.8 to, if we're seeing about a, 1.1 or $1.3 million decrease, we can see ultimately where those funds are going. And generally, they'd probably be coming first and foremost out of our committed balance to offset budget reductions. So line 870. Here it is again on the 6% minimum fund balance. So just the difference is what we're seeing the effect is, again, just a transfer of about $1.3, $1.4 million based on each percentage increase of the minimum fund balance. Any questions on fund balance?
I guess I'm going to have a comment. You've done what we asked to do, which is to produce a good proposed draft budget and then to tell us what our capability is for increasing or not increasing the minimum fund balance to 6%. Looking at these numbers, it looks like on a one-year basis, you are ready to, or the district numbers are ready to ask the policy committee to go to work and make a recommendation on that to the whole board, which I think is the right way to do it. Look at the budget. One reason I asked about the capital fund transfers is if you look at your 4-year projection, you're not showing any capability to stretch that above 6% in future years. And I believe that's what was generally expected. But I think that is a good lead in to the next step, which is the final budget numbers after you've revised them, budget approval, and then a formal decision on the minimum fund balance, which I believe widely recommended that 5% is not adequate.
Budget timeline. So June 24th and to our next meeting would be August 12th. So again, both the presentations for both the 3rd and the 24th are preliminary and subject to change. Again, we'll be review and revising and then submitting to the ESD and incorporating any of their feedback. And then we'll be back here on August 12th and highlighting any revisions that may have occurred between now and August 12th. And then finally, the overall budget timeline, August 12th is our public hearing. And then after the public hearing, we'd have formal budget adoption on August 26th. And then plenty of time to meet the budget deadline submission to OSPI by August 31st. Any other questions or comments?
You do a good job of answering them as we go. So thank you.
Thank you
for that.
Julie, did you have any additional questions? All right. Thank you.
Yep. Sean, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. So now we are moving on to our action items. First on the agenda is the curriculum adoptions. We have the dual language ELA/SLA and the high school psychology curriculum. Both of these curriculums were open for the public to make an appointment and review, as well as to the board. Do we have an action, do we have a motion to approve the dual language ELA/SLA curriculum that was discussed at the last board meeting?
I move that we approve the curriculum from Benchmark Education that has been recommended.
Thank you, Martin.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. So we have a motion on the table to accept the dual language ELA SLA curriculum as presented. Any discussion?
I left mine on, but I'm going to say, this is more clarification of what's happened in the last 3 weeks. The curriculum was available for the public to review it downstairs and for board members to review it. And I, as an amateur, spent a couple of hours going through it. And I was impressed. I think the qualifications of the authors were high. It seemed to relate well culturally. And it appears to be, and I think a good job was done in going through and proposing the selection. So what was missing 3 weeks ago was time to get outside comment. This time it's there. And that's all I have to say.
Any further discussion? Great. All in favor of adopting the curriculum as presented, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, we have the high school psychology curriculum. Do I have a motion for that?
I have move that one as well. I read the textbook when I was down looking at the dual language curriculum, and it looked solid to me. Actually, I want to be lighthearted about it. I read the section on memory loss and it made me feel really good and happy. So I think it's a good textbook.
Seconded. Without a reading note.
Thank you, Martin and Tucker. And thank you for the discussion there, Martin. Any further discussion?
I just want to know, Heidi, could you give him an assessment on what he learned so that we can test your memory loss?
Great. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of adopting the psychology curriculum as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, motion carries. And now we have policy. So I'll let Superintendent Kelleher take the. We're good.
I think we're good.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure and share with the community that the board, the last time when we had the first read, we had the two policies, one on transitional kindergarten and our policy on cellular devices. We also talked about the procedure. And so we spent a little bit more time on the procedure side of things. And since then, since we've had 3 weeks between that, we have been able to revise that procedure, and it was presented to all the board members through our Friday weekly communication. And the feedback, the lack of feedback has said to the district that we are ready to move forward with that as a procedure as well, but we'll see where discussion goes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the first policy we have is policy 2230, transition to kindergarten programs. This is a second read, so I will entertain a motion.
Move that we dude, so close. That we sorry, I was on vacation. Someone else want to do it? Yeah. That's so happy.
I move that we adopt policy 2230 as read on our second read.
That's fine.
And I guess then you need a second. I'll second that.
Bingo.
All right, do we have any discussion on the transition to kindergarten policy? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Julie. That policy carries because policy 3245 is so important, whether you oppose or support it. Do I hear a motion to approve policy 3245, student and electronic devices?
Okay, I will move to approve policy 3245 on electronic devices.
I'll second.
Thank you, Martin and Julie. Do we have any discussion on this one?
Actually, I do. The procedure that has been amended, this is not a board decision on the procedure, but it was a concern that the procedure be very well documented and take care of clarification and make sure that it was very well solidly thought out. I like the way the procedure has been written with definitions and process and looking for things like documentation and how to handle different situations. I guess lightheartedly, one of the things that reminded me was seeing everybody pull a cell phone out during graduation to shine lights.
Yeah.
And so I think that procedure reassures me that the proposed intent is good, but there's some solid work administratively behind it to make it functional and flexible where it needs to be.
Well, and I think it goes to the point that policies and procedures are meant to be revised and amended as needed. This is going to be something that is completely new to maybe to some buildings, to individuals, teachers. So I think we have a good foundation to start with, and we'll see as we go. Any further discussion? Great. Hearing none, all in favor of approving policy 3245, student and electronic devices, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we got our superintendent report.
Excellent. All right. Well done, everyone. Thank you. Just a quick update on Valley Academy of Learning and our transitions program. Our teachers have left their buildings packed and ready to move. After the 4th of July, the furniture and boxes from both programs will be delivered to the former Columbia Elementary building. All remaining surplus items will then be delivered back to Valley Academy, where we'll be storing those. And Brian Brocky and his team will be working diligently to get a surplus report to the board so we can move some of those items along. On Thursday, we have the first of our 3 administrative advanced days, and our leadership team engages in these 3 days of training, collaboration, and leadership growth annually to be ready and prepared for the upcoming school year. I've added those to the school board calendar. You are not required to attend, but you're more than welcome to pop in anytime. If you join us at 11:30, you'll be right at lunchtime, and our administrative association is providing some lunch. We'll have a taco bar with some other fun items, so please stop by. We'll also have the next few days of leadership advance will be August 5th and August 12th, respectively. I'm also, on another note, proud and excited to announce that we'll be partnering as documented today in our consent agenda in the contract section. We'll be partnering with Garco and ALSC for the Tech Center project. So that is our contractor and design team that come together as a package. So we're very excited about moving through the progressive design build process as well. And they, because of the school board making this announcement before we have July off, they're going to be able to hit the ground running starting after the 4th. So we're very excited about that. And then just to close, kind of our final school board meeting for the 24-25 school year, just a heartfelt thank you to the school board members, our cabinet team, our staff, students, parents, and the community on the close of another amazing school year. We appreciate the support and trust that you place in us as your school district in your community, and the trust that you put in us every day as you send your most precious commodity to us. So just a heartfelt thank you, and just, yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Now we'll move on to board communication. I'll start over here with Mark.
Good thing you're not first.
I know. I'm not.
I just wanted to say on Friday we had the memorial, and it was a privilege to help with that. And also thank you to Wenatchee School District staff that were out there volunteering. They were there bright and early setting up chairs and making it all happen. So I was happy to see that.
Give us another shot. I apologize for being late. Like I said, my vacation was unexpectedly cut short, so I was hurried back here. I wanted to congratulate everyone who's done with school, and I hope they enjoy their summer.
Well, we had 2 uplifting graduation ceremonies, and they were really welcome. Couldn't come at a better time. Congratulate the students and the staff for leading by example of hope, determination, and encouragement. So that was great. We had the last meeting of the Students Advisory Council for the year. So Corey, you can get ready for your new members coming in at the beginning of next year. And there was also the last CORPAC board meeting, and they're getting ready and excited, I hope, for a successful summer school.
I think you guys have said it all. Thank you to the school district and Lincoln, the cabinet team for just really being an anchor for the community during this challenging time the last several weeks. I know Mark has been very involved with that as well. I think, yeah, there's a lot of appreciation for the work that the school district and Lincoln specifically did. So, Julie, you got anything?
I don't really have anything, but I just want to say, Mark, I know you've been really involved with some of the memorial efforts, and I know our district has been working with Lincoln and the community on ways to pay tribute to the family. And I thought the memorial was beautiful. I was out of town, but my youngest daughter was able to help participate and set up early, and everyone did such a great job. And I was glad to be able to watch online. I know we keep hearing suggestions about great tributes. I was glad to hear about the buddy bench going in. I think that's fantastic. I know we've received some correspondence about some other ideas, and I'd love to look for ways to make some of these work, because I really appreciate the community coming together and the work our district is doing to help the community, the family, and everyone, especially at Lincoln, who was really staff and students who were really impacted. So great job by everyone. Great effort, Mark and Corey, for moving this along. So I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Julie.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that concludes our meeting, and it's 7:50, and this meeting is adjourned.